Ever get that feeling, like you're finally in the driver's seat with your money, not just letting it slip away, but actually like making it work for you?
It's a good feeling, right?
The best. And that's exactly what we're tackling in this deep dive. Debt management.
We're going to break it all down, make it way less scary and a lot more understandable. We'll be covering good debt versus bad debt, how credit scores really work, and the actual strategies you can use not just to manage what you owe, but to shrink it down.
It's like a financial makeover. Out with the old, stressful relationship with debt, and in with a new, savvy, empowered you.
I like that.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's unpack this whole good debt versus bad debt thing. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Right, like debt is debt, right.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Think about it like, say, investing in a really nice, high-quality chef's knife.
Okay.
It's a bigger cost up front, definitely. But in the long run, delicious, home-cooked meals, probably saving money because you're not ordering takeout all the time. Good debt.
So it's like an investment. It's not just spending. It's spending on things that will help you financially in the long run, like that chef's knife that'll save you tons of money on takeout.
Exactly. Or think about student loans, something a lot of people deal with, often considered good debt. Yeah, you're borrowing money, but that education can lead to better job opportunities, higher earning potential.
Makes sense. It's strategic. You're weighing the potential return on investment.
Right. But, and this is important, you got to borrow responsibly. Always explore all the options like income-driven repayment plans so you're not drowning in those monthly payments.
For sure. Okay, so that's the good side of debt. What about the not so good kind?
Okay, so you've got that awesome chef's knife, right? But you're craving that instant gratification. So instead of using it, it's takeout every night. That takeout, that's your bad debt. Feels good in the moment, but hurts your wallet in the long run.
Okay, I see it. Short-term pleasure, long-term pain. So credit cards, for example. Those fall into that bad debt category pretty often.
They can, especially if you're only making those minimum payments and letting the interest pile up. It's a recipe for a debt cycle that's really hard to escape. Another example, payday loans.
Ugh, payday loans. Everyone warns about those. We'll definitely unpack those more a bit later, but they're bad news, right?
Let's just say, those are like the poster child for bad debt. Sky-high interest rates, designed to trap people. We'll dive into the specifics later.
Looking forward to it. Now, how about we shift gears a bit to something that's like totally tied to debt credit scores? It seems like everyone's obsessed with having a good one these days.
For good reason. It's basically your financial report card. Tells lenders how responsible you are with money. A higher score, you're more likely to get better loan terms, lower interest rates, which can save you thousands over time.
Okay, so a good score equals some serious financial power moves. But how does this whole scoring system even work? Is it like some secret formula that no one understands?
It can feel that way, but basically there are 5 key factors. Most important, payment history. Makes up a whopping 35% of your score.
Wait, seriously? 35% just for paying your bills on time?
That's right. Shows lenders you're reliable.
No more forgetting about those utility bills then. So what happens if you do miss a payment, even just once? How badly does that hurt you?
It can sting, believe me. Let's say you miss a credit card payment. Not only will you likely get hit with a late fee, but that one little slip-up can drop your score by, like, 50 points or more.
Ouch. That's a serious reality check.
It's true. Paying on time is absolutely crucial.
All right, mental note. Set those payment reminders. So besides being a stickler for paying on time, what else goes into this credit score equation? So we're talking credit scores, and I'm already kind of stressed about messing it up. What's next on this financial report card?
Next up is credit utilization. Bit of a mouthful, but it's basically how much of the credit you have available are you actually using. That's about 30% of your score.
Okay, so less is more then. Should I, lock my credit card away and pretend it doesn't exist?
Not exactly. It's more about finding that balance. You don't want to max out your cards, but you also don't want them gathering dust. The sweet spot is keeping your credit utilization below 30%.
Below 30%, got it. So let's say, hypothetically, I've got a credit card with a $10,000 limit. Does that mean I should keep my balance under $3,000?
You got it. It's like, imagine a delicious pie. You're not going to eat the whole thing in one go, right? Enjoy a slice, savor it, save the rest for later.
Yeah.
That's what you want to you show lenders you can handle your credit, not get overwhelmed by it.
Love the analogy. Never thought about pie that way before. All right, so we've got payment history, credit utilization.
Yeah.
What about that other 35% of my credit score? What makes that up?
Right, so that remaining chunk, it's divided up between a few things. Length of your credit history, that's 15%. And you've got new credit inquiries, 10%. And what's called your credit mix, also 10%. Basically, the longer you've had credit and use it responsibly, the better it is for your score.
So longer credit history is good. Does that mean, like, even if I have an old credit card I don't use anymore, I shouldn't close that account?
It's a bit tricky, honestly. Closing an old card can actually sometimes ding your score a little, especially if it lowers your total available credit, which then bumps up that utilization ratio we were talking about. It's a good idea to weigh the pros and cons there, maybe even chat with a financial advisor if you're not sure.
Good advice. Okay, so we've covered good debt, bad debt, and those all-important credit scores. Now for the maybe not so fun part, actually dealing with the debt we have. Where do we even start?
I hear you. It can definitely feel overwhelming, like a mountain you have to climb. But first things first, deep breath. You're not alone in this. We've all been there. The key is to face it head on.
Easier said than done, right? Sometimes it feels easier to just like shove those credit card statements in a drawer and ignore them.
Tempting for sure, but trust me, burying your head in the sand just makes it worse later. First things first,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to create a debt inventory.
A debt inventory.
Yeah, like a list. Write down all your debts, balances, interest rates, minimum payments, everything.
So like taking stock of your pantry before grocery shopping. Got to know what you're working with.
Exactly. Once you have that clear picture of what you're dealing with, you can explore different strategies to manage and eventually conquer that debt.
When you say strategies, what are we talking about here? What are some effective ways to actually start chipping away at that debt?
Two common methods are the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. Imagine for a second you've got this tower of blocks. With the debt snowball, you focus on knocking down the smallest one first. That's your smallest debt. You make minimum payments on everything else, and once that small debt is gone, you take that payment amount and roll it into the next smallest debt. Creates a snowball effect.
Oh, I like that. Gaining momentum as you go, knocking down those blocks sounds kind of motivating. What about the debt avalanche? Does that involve, like, toppling the whole tower at once?
Not quite. This one's more strategic. Think of it like targeting the block that's costing you the most first. This method focuses on tackling the debt with the highest interest rate, regardless of the balance. You'll save the most money on interest charges in the long run that way.
Makes sense. Both methods get you to the same place, eventually debt-free. It's more about finding what clicks for you, right?
Exactly. Some people, they get really motivated by those quick wins, that snowball effect. Others, they prefer the strategic number crunching aspect of the avalanche.
So it's all about what works for your personality and your budget. Are there other ways to tackle this besides those two methods? What about balance transfer credit cards or debt consolidation loans? I've heard those tossed around, but I'm not entirely sure how they work.
Those can be helpful, but you got to know what you're getting into. Balance transfer cards often have that 0% interest promo period for transferred balances. So it's like a little interest-free loan, gives you some breathing room to make a dent in that debt without the extra charges piling up.
Sounds almost too good to be true. There's got to be a catch, right? Like a time limit or something.
You're right, there's always fine print. Make sure you know what those balance transfer fees are and have a solid plan to pay off the balance before that promo period ends. Otherwise, those high-interest charges come right back.
So it's a sprint, not a marathon. Got it. What about debt consolidation loans? How do those work?
Imagine taking out one new loan to pay off a bunch of other debts. That's essentially what a debt consolidation loan is. It can really simplify your finances and potentially even get you a lower interest rate, which makes those monthly payments a bit easier to handle.
Streamlining. I like it. Any downsides to these consolidation loans?
Like anything, you got to do your research, compare the loan terms, make sure it actually makes sense for your situation, that it's actually saving you money in the long run.
So knowledge is power, like they say. Now, about those red flag loans we mentioned earlier, payday loans and title loans, what makes them so risky?
Payday loans, they're notorious for those crazy high interest rates and fees.
Right.
Often end up trapping borrowers in a cycle of debt. Imagine you borrow a small amount, say $500, and end up owing double or even triple that amount in interest and fees. It's a slippery slope.
That's terrifying. It's like they're designed to keep people stuck. What about title loans? Are those just as bad?
Just as bad, if not worse, honestly.
Why?
They're secured by your car title, which means if you can't repay the loan, you risk losing your car. And that just creates a whole other set of problems, right? And
Yeah.
impacts your job, your family, everything. It can spiral pretty quickly.
It's like a domino effect. So how can people protect themselves? What are some warning signs, some things to watch out for to avoid these predatory lenders?
One big red flag. If a lender's offering loans with no credit checks or like super fast approval, that's usually a bad sign. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Always, always read the fine print. Make sure you understand the terms, the APR, any fees associated with it.
Yeah, it's like they're waving around a juicy steak, but they forget to mention, oh, by the way, it costs $1 million.
It's all about being informed, making sure you're not getting tricked.
Exactly. So we've talked about spotting those shady lenders, but now how about the fun part, boosting that credit score of ours? Everyone wants a good one, but like, how do we actually make that happen?
Think of it like building a house.
Yeah.
You need that strong foundation.
Okay.
It takes time and effort, got to be consistent, but once you've got it,
Yeah,
it's worth it.
makes sense.
And you know the most important part of that foundation is?
Payment history.
Right.
That 35% of our score.
You got it. Paying those bills on time every time. That's like putting money in the bank, but for your creditworthiness.
Right, right. No more late fees for us. So besides that, what else can we do to give those scores a little boost?
Remember our pie analogy with credit utilization. Got to keep those slices small, my friend.
I love that we're back to pie.
Keep it below 30%. That's key.
Under 30. Check. Anything else?
Yeah, don't go crazy opening a bunch of new credit cards all at once.
Oh, right.
Makes it look a little risky to those lenders.
Like you're desperate or something.
Exactly. Slow and steady wins the credit score race.
Gotcha. Any other insider tips you can share? I'm feeling like I need to take notes here.
Get in the habit of checking your credit report.
Okay.
You can get one for free every year from each of those credit bureaus.
Right, right.
That way you can make sure there aren't any mistakes dragging your score down.
It's like being your own financial detective. I like it. Okay, before we wrap things up here, let's put this all together, like a real life situation.
Okay.
Let's say they've got like $10,000 in credit card debt spread across a few different cards.
Happens all the time.
Right. So how can they use what we've talked about to tackle that?
Let's say they decide to go with the debt avalanche method.
Okay.
They're going to focus on the card with that highest interest rate first, chip away at that one, while making minimum payments on the others.
Okay.
And maybe they even look into a balance transfer card with that 0% introductory rate to speed things up a bit. But always remember, gotta pay it off before that promo period ends.
Right, right. Got to read that fine print.
Exactly.
It's like a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
Getting rid of that high interest and then using the balance transfer to your advantage.
Exactly. Strategic moves.
Now, different scenario. What about someone who, say, they lose their job and suddenly they're struggling to make their debt payments?
Tough situation.
Right. And unfortunately, it's something a lot of people go through.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is to remember, you're not alone.
Right.
A lot of lenders, they're willing to work with you if you're going through a tough time,
Okay.
reaching out to them, talking about your options. Things like negotiating a temporary forbearance or a hardship plan can make a huge difference.
Communication is key.
Absolutely.
Wow, this deep dive into debt management has been, like, eye-opening.
It's been great talking through it all with you.
So many things I didn't even know.
And remember, the most important thing is that it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Right.
Start small, break it down into manageable steps, and, celebrate those victories along the way.
Totally. Every little bit counts. And hey, if you ever feel bad about grabbing that latte, a little bit of bad debt here and there, it's okay. It's all about balance, right?
Absolutely. Enjoy that latte. You deserve it.
And now for a final thought. We've talked about good debt, bad debt, but what if you started thinking about all your spending that latte, that new car, as either an investment in your future or, well, not? How would that change your decisions day to day? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into debt management. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to taking control of your finances.